Hello and welcome. My name is Thomas, and in this video, we're going to be talking about the basics of content creation in WordPress. Okay, so welcome to video 3 in this 5-part video series on how to get up and running with the basics of WordPress. If you didn't have a chance to catch the first 2 videos in this series, I do recommend that you go and check those out. I'm actually leaving a link today in the description for a playlist I've created, which will also include all 5 videos if you'd like to watch them in succession or just kind of keep them as a nice little library you can always have access to. I will leave a link below to that. Now, in the previous video, what we did is we went through and we got up and running with our WordPress host. Now, if you want to hear why it's so important to have your own hosting, again, go back and check out that video. What we also did to the tail end of that video is we walked through the step-by-step process of getting up and running with a WordPress host up to the point where we had WordPress installed on what we call a staging environment. In essence, it's just kind of a website that's quote-unquote live on the web, but not officially live at a domain that we want it to finally end. So rather than it being mywebsite.com, it's mywebsite.wpengine.com. That sort of thing. So we've got the basic install of WordPress up and running. And so what we're going to do in this video is I'm going to walk you through, again, the fundamentals of creating content in WordPress. So without any further delay, let's jump in. Okay, so here is the WordPress website that I had created in WP Engine. That they set this up for me nice and easy after I signed up for an account. So the first thing we're going to do once we've got to the front end of our site is we're going to click this link up here in the top left hand corner, which is always going to take us back to our WordPress dashboard. And the dashboard is going to have a number of different links and items in here. And then they've got kind of some getting started guides if you want to do that. I usually just kind of skip out of that. Now, the very first thing we're going to do, since we're talking about content, and I'm going to get to why we're doing this here in a moment, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go down to plugins. We're going to click on add new. And right here, you're going to see the very first most popular, or arguably one of the most popular plugins in all of WordPress, is one called the Classic Editor. Now, by default, if you go into posts and you click on add new, which is the main content in WordPress, you're going to see this kind of block-based editor, right? So there's a lot of controversy over, if this is a good addition to WordPress. For the type of WordPress user that we're going to be covering in this particular series, I'm going to make the argument that it isn't the best. Now, you can feel free to jump in here and test it, see if you like it. What I'm going to recommend, and I will get to why here in a second, is that you go to plugins and again, add new, and the first one that shows up is Classic Editor. If you don't see this, if for whatever reason maybe it's not showing up in your install of WordPress, just search Classic Editor. Give it a second and it's going to show up first. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on Install Now, and then we're going to click Activate. Now, if we go back over to Posts as we did previously, and then we click on Add New, you'll see that the layout's going to change a little bit. It's going to be very simple, very clean, very readable. You'll notice that it's kind of, it's more closer to what you would expect from something like a basic version of Google Docs or Microsoft Word. In essence, what this is basically a document. It's something you type in. You can add pictures and links as you would imagine, but it's more geared towards actual content. Okay, so you might be wondering, why, if the block-based builder is now what is default in WordPress, why are you in this course encouraging people to go back and install the Classic Editor as a way of using WordPress? Now, before I get to that, first I have to kind of explain what the block-based builder is. In essence, it's kind of like a page builder. So rather than just typing out a free-form document, you get to work with things called blocks. So you can drag over a block for a quote, and then for an image, and then for a carousel, and then for a block quote, and then, you're essentially building out a page with puzzle pieces. Now, the reason why I recommend just having a text document rather than a block-based builder is because what we're creating here isn't a static website. What's become very popular amongst many WordPress themes and frameworks is creating very static websites. Things that look very pretty. You can scroll through and there's parallax photos and there's image carousels and there's pop-ups, this, and everything moves and there's hover states. But that's not what we're talking about in this series. In this series, instead, we're going to be talking about using WordPress as a content creation engine. There's a reason why there isn't a block-based page builder in YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, right? It's because those platforms are all about the content. We don't want a website that people just kind of glance at momentarily and leave, never to return again. Instead, we want to use WordPress as an engine for creating our blog posts, for creating our videos, or housing or showcasing our videos or our podcasts, or whatever type of medium we want to get out. And in that case, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to have to mess with a bunch of block-based page building if what you're doing is writing an article, right? At that point, just a text editor will do. Or if you're just typing in a short description for your video. Again, don't need a block-based editor, just text will do. Same thing applies for the show notes of your podcast. You don't need a block-based builder. You just need to be able to add some bulleted points for maybe your show notes, for some of the links that you recommended in that episode, and maybe a short description. Again, you don't need a block-based builder. You just need to type some text. And maybe if you're fancy, you'll throw in an image or two, which the classic editor handles fine. Okay, now that we got some of that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about some of the fundamentals of actually creating content in WordPress. Okay, so what you're going to notice up here in the sidebar of WordPress is you're going to notice that there's two main types of content. We're going to have posts, and then we're going to have pages. Now, what you can think of posts as are your individual pieces of content, right? So those are going to be your videos. That's where going to be your house, your videos. Those are going to be your blog posts, your photo, your whatever, or your podcast episode, or maybe a combination of all of those. Those are all going to be your posts. You're going to be continually adding more and more of these as you grow your platform. Pages, on the other hand, are static. So you're going to use this for maybe your About Me page, or you could also use this for your privacy policy, or a number of different things that are similar, but your pages are going to be completely static. You're not going to keep adding pages over time. You're going to just add them as you need them. With that being said, you'll notice some similarities between the editing of the posts and the pages. You'll notice here that we've got a headline, we've got a slug right here, or a permalink, we've got the content, we've got some of the publishing parameters, we've got some of the attributes, and a featured image. Now, each of these we're going to break down and we're going to talk about in more details here shortly. So let's go ahead and go back to posts, and then let's click add new, and let's go ahead and break each of these pieces down. So I'm going to go ahead and type a title, and then we're just going to click save draft. Now what you see here is it's going to create, again, what's called a permalink, and this is going to be the actual link that this will be live at once we actually go live with this particular post. We're going to talk about changing permalinks a little bit later. I'm going to recommend that you use a different format than what is default in WordPress, but again, we'll talk about that a little bit later. And then as I touched on, this is the classic editor. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where you're going to type out your content. So I just went ahead here and filled in some placeholder content. And then you've just got some very basic editing tools. So again, you can do bold, italic, bulleted list, numbered list. I can block quote this. Of course, you can center text, right align. So really basics. Now, what I'm going to recommend for most cases is that you just stick to these main tools. Once you start trying to get in here and, I want to change all the colors and I want to start changing individual fonts, you're going to get into some wacky formatting issues. So the more clean and simple you can keep your writing, the better. Now, in those cases where you do need to go beyond some of the basic formatting, for example, if you're going to write more of a longer form article, you got this toolbar toggle right here, which they used to refer to affectionately as the kitchen sink. Click on that and it's going to give you some additional options. And again, I would use these very carefully things as like indent, you can do it, but just always know that the more you start kind of tweaking with things like that, the more that formatting can start to get a little bit hairy on you. And things like text color, just for the sake of readability, I would never touch that. Same thing with a number of these other formatting. Special characters, you can do that. That works just fine. But again, you can do like a strike through if you need to, a horizontal line, which again, some of these, they can be used, but not always necessarily needed. Clear formatting. So if you're going to be copy and pasting from a Word document and it brings in some ugly formatting, you can just click on this and it cleans it up. I would typically recommend not copy and pasting from a Word document or from a rich text editor, because a lot of times what happens when you copy and paste from a rich text editor, something that has italic and bold and all those kind of worked into it, it can copy in a lot of formatting, kind of junk, as I like to call it, that kind of comes along with it. So what I typically recommend is that you try to get some sort of clean text in here, like type it out in plain text and then paste it in here and do your formatting that way. Or I've actually got another video tutorial I did a while back of an application, an app called Bear, that you can actually type in Markdown, which is its own language, but you can type in Markdown, do all your formatting in Bear, and then you can copy it as HTML and then come up here and paste it in the text section as HTML. That ensures that it's nice and clean and it doesn't add any extra unwanted formatting. Okay, so one of the other things that we have in here as well is our media library, which we're going to be talking about a little bit later, but you're going to be able to add in a photo or images as well really easily. So let's go ahead and do that. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to a website called pexels.com. This is a website you can find a massive library of free and royalty-free images. So you can use these images for both personal and commercial use. So you can download, these are high resolution images, and you can download them and use them in your blog posts. Okay, so what we're going to do is what you can do is you can actually just drag this over if you want to, or you can click on Add Media and then just drag this. And what you're doing is you're adding this to your library. Your site has a whole library full of all the images that you have access to. Then on the right hand side, what you'll notice here is you can add in some alt text. This is going to be, you can think of this as kind of the readable version of this image. So search engines like it, that sort of thing. You can add in a caption if you want, and a caption will show up right below the image if you want to. A description is more for your internal needs, and you can copy the URL if you need to directly access this image at any point in time. For alignment, we're going to leave it at none. We're not going to link to anything. We don't want to link to any of these. I see tons of WordPress websites where all the images link to the media file. Don't really want that. Size, I'm going to go ahead and put this at full size. And then I'm going to go ahead and click Insert into Post. And let's go ahead and publish this. So we can take a look at how this looks here and then on the front end. So the way we do this is we go up to View Post. And under View Post, you'll see we've got some basic stuff. We've got the category, which is uncategorized at this point. The headline, we've got the author, the date, there's no comments, and then some basic text, right? So there's that image that we had embedded in here. Now we're going to get to themes a little bit later and what a theme is. Right now, I'm just using the base install, or the kind of comes with WordPress, right out of the box WordPress theme that's actually created by WordPress itself. We're going to be talking about a different WordPress theme, but just for the sake of these tutorials and getting the basics of creating content in WordPress, we're just going to be using the base theme for now. Now, just so you know, you can, if you just want a really basic blog, you can just use this since it is absolutely free, and use it to kind of get your feet wet with WordPress. Okay, so now let's go ahead and pop back up to the menu up here where you'll see we've got a little option up here that says Edit Post. So we're going to click on Edit Post. And the great thing is that beyond just embedding in an image, you can even embed videos as well. And this is one of the great things about WordPress, is that they make this so easy. So what we're going to do is we're going to, let's go ahead and open up our favorite YouTube channel. Go to videos. We'll just snag, here's a nice video. And so what you can do is you can actually just copy this share URL. And this is one of the great things about WordPress. We're just going to paste that URL in here, and it's automatically going to embed that video. So we click View Post. There's the image, and there you go. There's the video. And that same thing will also work with Vimeo. So you can actually just use this as a platform for hosting your video. We're gonna talk about another theme that takes this a little bit more in depth, but that hopefully helps for now. Okay, so some of the other pieces that you'll notice here in terms of this particular piece of content is that we have this publish area up here. And so this is going to be the place where we actually determine the publication of this article. So for example, I've already published this, so this is live for the world to see. But if I wanted to, I can save this as a draft and continue to work on it until I'm ready for it to go live. Alternately, I can go in here and I can actually specify a date. So let's say I've finished this, but I want it to go live tomorrow at 7 a.m. So then what I would be able to do is I could go to December. Oh, that's the month we're in. That works. So then we're going to go 4th, and we're going to say we want this at 7 a.m. Click OK. And then we can go ahead and click Schedule. But what we're going to do here before that is we're going to take a look at some of the visibility options before we actually schedule this out. So we've got a number of different options here. Now, what you're probably going to use most commonly is you're just going to set this to public. That just means that this post is, once it goes live, everybody will be able to see it. Optionally, there is an option to stick this post to the front page. Now, this is going to act differently on different themes. Essentially what it does, however, is it kind of makes this the top post, the first post. And so the more sticky posts, quote unquote, you create, those will always show up in numeric or date order. So long story short, posts are always ordered by dates, with the newest being first, and then from there, the oldest following suit. However, if there's a sticky post, that will always show up before all other posts. So if you want this to remain at the front of the line, so to speak, then check this box and it will show up at the front. You can also password protect a post. That's pretty self-explanatory. It just means that you have to enter in a password to be able to access it. And then you can set something to private, which means that it can only be accessed by somebody who is logged in as an editor or as an administrator. So we're going to get to users and rules a little bit later. But for most cases, you're just going to go ahead and click public. And then if you're going to schedule it, you can just go ahead and click schedule. If you don't want this to go live on a specific date, then you can change that date to be, 10 minutes ago, and then just click publish. Categories are a way to be able to, as you might imagine, categorize your posts. Now, this is really important. We're going to be talking more about categories and tags later, but you want to try to limit those. I've seen a lot of websites out there who create like 30 or 40 or 100 categories. You want to keep those pretty limited. And they are also hierarchical, which means that you can create a category and then a subcategory and then a subcategory. Tags are kind of a secondary way to be able to organize your content, and these are a little bit more loose. You can create hundreds of tags if you want to, but these are just kind of a secondary way beyond categories to organize your posts. Attributes, this is going to be specific to this theme, so we're not going to get into that right now. And then beyond this, we have the option to select a featured image. So the featured image, again, is going to change based upon the theme that you're using, but usually, and in the theme we're going to be talking about in future videos, it's going to be the thumbnail. It's going to be, if you think about YouTube, for example, it's got a thumbnail and it's got a title. That thumbnail in the world of WordPress would be known as the featured image. So I've already got an image uploaded, so I'm going to go ahead and select that, and then I'm going to click this button here that says Set Featured Image. And so this is going to be now saved as my featured image. Now, one of the panels that's not actually showing up in this particular theme, and it will in the theme that we're going to be covering in the future, is one called post formats. And post formats are something relatively new to WordPress that are so powerful. A post format allows you to specify the type, not the type, but the format of the post that the actual medium that you're specifying for that post. So for example, that's where you specify if this post is a video, if it's an audio post, or if it is a traditional or written post, if it is a photo post. So kind of the medium you get to specify as well. And again, we're going to be talking about that a little bit later. Okay, so now let's go ahead and pop on over to pages and let's go back into add new. And again, you're going to start to see some similarities to what we just looked at for posts. So I'm not going to rehash all the things we just talked about. You've got the headline, the slug will show up there, same formatting, same publishing rules. The only difference that you're going to find here, and again, you'll see as well as the featured images there as well. But under page attributes, this is something that, as you might imagine, since it says page attributes, is unique to pages. Now, pages, unlike posts, are hierarchical. So you can create a page called about, right? So maybe this is my about me page, publish that. But you can create a sub page of this if you want to. And then under this, you can just select, maybe we want our sample page to be the parent. Click update. And right now our permalink structure is kind of the default WordPress permalink structure. We'll change that. But what this would be is mywebsite.com/sample page/about me. So it adds that extra directory in there. So it's the child of that particular page. So it's hierarchical in nature. So you can create a whole tree structure of pages if you want or need to. Beyond that, pages typically have a number of templates available to them. That is, the way that this page appears on the front end, or sometimes even the functionality of that page, can change. Because again, pages are more static. They're kind of have a little bit more of that block building flexibility inherent in them. Again, we're going to be talking about that a little bit later. But again, that's one of the things that you have available to you. And the last thing is order. So if you want to be able to custom order how these appear, you can change that here. There's a specific plugin that I recommend that makes that a little bit easier, but at least you know that it's there and that the functionality is available to you. Now, one of the other things that you'll notice up here, if we go back over to posts, is that beyond what we've taken a look at thus far, you have this little panel up here that says screen options. Now, we've already taken a look at many of these boxes, so each of these checkboxes are going to be one of these panels, right? And so if you don't want to ever view them, you can hide them if you need to, and that's totally acceptable. You can also show a number of ones that don't show up by default. An excerpt, for example, is going to be a little snippet of text that will show up underneath a thumbnail, typically for most themes. So again, this is something that will be specific to different themes, but you can use it if you want to. Trackbacks are something that are a little bit archaic. Not going to go into them. Typically don't recommend using them. Custom fields you don't typically have to worry about. That's going to be more for if you're a developer. Discussion and comments are going to be the portion of your site that will be comments. So if you want people to be able to comment on that particular piece of content, you can specify those here. You can check whether or not you want to allow comments on this specific piece of content, and if you want to allow trackbacks and pingbacks. I typically recommend disabling them. All they really do is put a link at the bottom of your post to other places that are linking to you. So it's kind of an older thing to do. It doesn't really benefit the reader in any real way that I've seen, so I typically just leave it out. Then you've got the comment section. As people come and comment on this piece of content, they're going to show up here where you'll be able to moderate them. You can also moderate them here in the sidebar, which you're going to be talking about in a future video, but you can also moderate them here, and you can even add comments if you want to as well. Add comment, and then we can jump to the front end. Scroll on down, and there you go. There is my comment. The last couple of options you'll see here is the slug. We can just kind of leave that off for now since that kind of gets superseded by the permalinks section here. And then the option to show the author. So if you're gonna have multiple people who are contributing on your site, there'll be a drop down here of all the different users on your site, and then you'll be able to specify which one is the author of this particular piece of content. And then depending on the actual theme itself, it will showcase that particular author. Okay, so that's it. That's all we're gonna dive into today. There is still more that we have to cover on the topic of content creation. I just wanted to give you the basics of what it looks like so you can just start to get yourself familiar with the content creation process in WordPress. Now in the next video, what we're gonna do is we're gonna walk you step by step through some of the other features within WordPress specific to content management and organization. We focused more on the actual content creation, where to actually type in the text, the headline, the categories, tags, and featured image. In the next video, we're going to talk more about how to start organizing all this content that you're creating so it doesn't get out of hand as you start creating a lot of content. So as always, if you found this video useful, hit that like button, subscribe if you're not already, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video of the series. Hey, so I get asked all the time how I make my videos, so I decided to put together for you a free 1-hour training, which I'm calling the 7 Pillars of Effective Video. Again, this is totally free, so click the box in the top right-hand corner of this video. You can also head on over to rightly.tv/training. Again, this is totally free. Head on over to rightly.tv/training.